Well, usually conferences attract me when the theme of the conference resonates with me. The people who are representing the conference seem to be authentic, and I have some basic interest, if not a passion, at least a basic interest in the theme and the subject. The bother of the subject of trust has bothered me. Its lack of it, not its presence. You know, there are many forces which become engines of economic growth, then they level off, and then they become engines of economic destruction. So it's like a pendulum, it goes back and forth. And mankind and civilizations have always sought some nice mean, but you can never get to the mean, so you move a little and then you correct it and you come back to the central point. And I think the same thing is happening with consumerism and capitalism, which you connected together into consumer capitalism. There's nothing wrong per se with capitalism or consumerism. Consumers must earn, they must spend, and an economic development must happen. And capitalism must reward those who deserve to be rewarded. It's only when these go out of the bandwidth that you start to have problems. That has happened, both with consumerism and capitalism. Capitalism in terms of the excessive greed of very few people, and consumerism in terms of consuming what you really don't require. And you start to see signs of that. And I think there'll be a correction in this, because the awareness that your consumption must be sustainable and must be as much as Mother Earth can give you is spreading very wide. Irrespective of the controversies on climate change, there's an awareness that you can extract that much out of Mother Earth and no more. You know, there's a big difference, if I have to choose only one difference between Eastern ways of looking at things and Western ways. Western ways have come out of the age of enlightenment. They are driven by linearity, logic, and focusing on the subject rather than its surroundings and contexts. That's the strength of Western rationality. And it's a product of the age of enlightenment in the last 300-400 years. Eastern philosophies, whether it's Confucianism or Indian ways of looking at things or even Middle Eastern ways of looking at things, are more holistic. They tend to look at the object within a context, and therefore they tend to be more ambiguous from a Western point of view, and Western ways of looking at things tend to become too narrow focused from an Eastern point of view. And I think with the emergence of Eastern economies, China, India and so on, there is a gradual melding of these 2 points of view, where the West is realizing that the whole of civilization cannot be consigned to rationality, because what we don't know far exceeds what we know. And the fact that mankind has acquired so much knowledge just pales into insignificance when you realize how much mankind does not know. And the Eastern way of looking at it is to look at it more holistically, and therefore in a given circumstance, what is acceptable may not be acceptable in some other circumstance. And whereas Western philosophy might regard this as ambiguous or dishonest at an extreme, Eastern philosophy doesn't think so. And I think a nice melding of this is going to emerge. I'm finding this all the time in my work in management. You know, if you look at life philosophically, it's all about good and evil, obstacles and opportunities, success and failure. It's a combination, it's like a dumbbell. It's a combination of opposites. And it's the balance of those that have to come. And I think it's exactly the same with business and sustainability on the one hand, profits and serving the poor on the other, bottom line of the companies with affordability for the poor. And I think I don't want to eulogize Eastern ways of doing things out of context, but because you find all of these present in the East, and I'm referring specifically to India now. You find wealth, you find poverty, you find obstacles, you find opportunity, you find low consumption and yet opportunity for consumption. They are becoming innovative in a way which the West has never thought of. For example, I don't think any Westerner sitting in the West could ever think of a nano car. The idea couldn't possibly enter his head. Likewise with the Swachh water filter, which I demonstrated yesterday, it cannot enter the mind of a Westerner because he is not in that context. If a Westerner lived in India, it might enter his mind, but he doesn't live in India. So I do believe that these apparent opposites will play out like all our mythological stories of victory of good over evil in a balance which mankind will be able to absorb. In other words, the engine of innovation is gradually moving from the west to the east. Honestly, Tata's never set out to play some role in any transformational sense. We did our job. It turned out that one or two nice things came out of it. And if I might quote my chairman, what would you like Tata's to be in, say, 50 years from now? Because that answers your question. He really says, I'd like Tata's to be bigger and serving more people in more meaningful ways than it has in the last 100 years. So when you become relevant to a consumer's needs and serve more people in a more meaningful way, whether they are in Europe or America or India, I think you will end up making money. That's the byproduct.